Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, and welcome to Excel for Admin Staff Part 1. If you are, eager, you're hungry for more Excel, we do have another session, Part 2, which we're going to be diving deeper into analyzing our data. So pivot tables, using specific formulas, or even potentially creating databases. That's going to be the Thursday's session. So Alex has already just put in the link to the slide deck so you can follow along there. It's going to be quite interactive this session because I don't know about you, but I also find that sometimes when I'm learning online, it would be great if I could also practice the skills at the same time. Otherwise, I don't remember. That being said, this is a recording, so you will always have access to this. So feel free to pause and play and review if you find certain things we went over a little bit too fast. So a little bit of a introduction on the Cobblestone Collective. We are essentially a group of educators around Canada, as well as some of us in the US, where we are very excited about various tech tools, and hopefully we love connecting and learning together with everyone. Yeah, I see that a lot of people are coming in different places in Canada. Where I am from in Toronto, I just wanted to acknowledge that I am on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, as well as Métis people. I also wanted to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 that's signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. And so, just so you know, I'm Isabella. We have Alex that's behind the Cobblestone Collective name there. She is going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to type your questions in to the chat. The chat is looks like a little speech bubble there, so you can feel free to type in any questions that you might have there so that we can answer them there. So with Excel, there's a couple of things that we're going to be going into today, but out of all five of these things, so using formulas, converting data into graphs, and organizing our data, whether it is sorting or filtering, and potentially making comments on Excel using on the browser version of Excel. Where do you feel if we're looking at these questions on a scale from 1 to 5? 5, you're like, I'm set, I'm ready for part 2 on Thursday, or maybe I'm a 3. I know basic things that I need to do day to day, but I would love to learn more. If you can let me know in the chat from 1 to 5, how do you feel about Excel? And Alex, I know that you mentioned that you use Excel every day. So where do you feel?
I use Excel every day, and I think I'm probably like a 2 on this list. I'm the person that if I need to use Excel, I can, but it takes me a really long time to do things. And one of the things I discovered this year is Excel TikTok of like short things that make my life easy. And I was like, okay, this has revolutionized my Excel learning. Like all the keyboard shortcuts, I've been like really learning that. So even though I use it all the time, as I said, I'm not that great at it. So we've got lots of people who are 2 to 3 twos. I haven't used Excel in a while. Threes. So we're kind of in that 2 to 3 type of range, I'm going to say for now. So that's where you're wondering where our group is at. We're in the 2 to 3 on 5.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we get to learn some stuff beforehand. So as I've mentioned, it would be great if we're all practicing the skills that we're learning today. So if we could just download that spreadsheet, and you can feel free to work on it on your desktop, or you can try and upload that onto your OneDrive, and I'll show you where you can do that. So just make sure you have access to that right now. I believe Alex is probably going to be dropping in the link. If not, it is just thecc.page/DLXL1. And just type that into the URL, and there you have it. There is a viewable spreadsheet. Don't get too overwhelmed by the various tabs that's at the bottom there, because we're just going to be proceeding it forward like so. I just saw that whether somebody, yeah, the workshop is definitely going to be recorded, and you're going to be emailed a link to it as well as the slide deck. So you can always use that to review. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to get yourself sorted. So just choose a particular avenue that you want to practice today. You can use your desktop version of it. You can also use the online version of it, but it would require you to upload it to your OneDrive. whatever you feel comfortable. Just make sure we are all going to be working on that particular spreadsheet.
And that's
And
the link
we'll,
I just put in the chat there. So if you want to just click it, it should take you to an Excel online and you can probably work straight from there.
yeah, it is viewable, so I would believe you have to probably make a copy of it. So we're all going to be starting at the bottom. So this is basically what the Excel, I'm going to be using the browser version of it. If you're curious to know what the major differences between like the browser version of Excel versus your desktop version of Excel, Alex has a fantastic link that can just sort of show you the differences between them. Because while the desktop version sometimes offers more functionality, what I really love about the online version is that I don't need to take up space on my computer, because I'm sure you know that once you start downloading various resources, you run out of space really quickly. At least that's for me. And then one other great thing is that I can share it to my team so that my team members can collaborate on the same spreadsheet. And then all of that is updated live. So that's what I really love about the commenting on the collaborating feature with the online version. So we're going to be just starting at the data entry tab. So if you scroll all the way to the left-hand side, at the bottom left is where you would navigate the tabs within the spreadsheet. We're in the data entry section. With Excel, we have to first collect data. And there's a couple of things and neat tricks that you might already know, but we're just going to practice it a couple of times because we're going to be repeating that over and over again. The example that I'm going to go through is, because I'm a teacher, is an attendance list. So just as a heads up, is that if you put on a text into a cell on the spreadsheet, the text will always be left aligned. If it's a particular number, the number will always be right aligned. So just in terms of indicating what kind of cell, like what kind of data you're putting in. If it's text, it's always going to be left-hand side. If it's numbers, it's always going to be right-hand side. So when we're creating our spreadsheets, or when we want to send it to other people for data collection, we always want to ensure that we have multiple headings. In this case, I'm trying to create an attendance sheet. So I want to make sure that I have all the dates that's available. So I can actually put in a date in different ways. So as you can see, if I were to put in today's date like so, because it is left aligned, it's telling me that it is simply reading this as a text. And so if this is reading as a text, if I were to hover over that cell and go to the green box at the bottom right corner, and if I dragged it horizontally, or if I were to drag it vertically, it is going to just assume that because the front part of the data is your text, it's going to just assume that the year is the only part that is changing. And so just a couple things to keep in mind of. So instead of writing my date like so, I like to just sort of write it completely as a number form. So 5/18/2021. Now Excel is registering that this is fully, completely as a number. And so if I were to drag it horizontally, it is changing it incrementally, and it's smart enough to realize that it is only going to be increasing the day. And if you drag it vertically, it will do the same thing. So you have to sort of be smart about how you're typing in your data into your Excel so that you can really hone in on that automatically filling option when you're dragging across or dragging straight down in your column. Let's just say you're still not really happy with these data points. So I don't really like to look at my dates in that format. You can actually click on a cell and then go to right click. If you go into right click, you'll see that there's an option called number format. And if you go into number format, you can actually change the date in different ways. So standard, there's the first couple of types is how it thinks the standard form of date is, but you can also change it to just only have your month as well as date. So the number format allows you to sort of format your cells in a different way. But always make sure that when you first initially type in to the cell, you need to see if it's reading as a text or is it reading as a data point, as a number, text versus number. So I'm just going to slowly be building this spreadsheet, this attendance sheet. I have my dates here. And what I really wanted to also include is a grade level. Instead of asking my teachers or my staff or anything, anybody to manually type in grade level, because I have some of my colleagues who would love to type in grades, they spell it out and they type in the number. I also wanted to limit that. So what I can create is a drop down menu that they can select, oh, this student is in grade 9, this student is in grade 10, 11, 12. So then it limits the type of data that I'm going to be collecting there. So in terms of creating a drop down list, you can go into conditional data validation, conditional formatting. So if you aren't sure where conditional formatting is, you can always look down the drop-down menu, or you can go up to the search bar and look for conditional formatting. I believe, is it data? Here, sorry, it is actually data validation. Apologies, data validation. So again, we're going to click on our cell, or just a blank space there, and then we're going to find our data validation option and go into data validation, and we're going to allow, instead of any value, I want my teachers to choose the 5 different grade levels because we teach high school. For my particular scenario, I'm going to create a list, and I'm going to write down a list of numbers. So 10, 9, 11, 12. And that's how I'm going to make sure that there is going to be a list where the user can select from. And once I select OK, you'll see that if you hover over, there is a drop-down menu here, and the user can choose 9, 10, 11, or 12. So all you have to do is write out grade as the header, and then you can have your drop-down menu there. And the drop-down menu
that's really great. I'm just going to double check something really quick.
Yeah.
I just want to see anybody in the chat. Are you actually able to get into the Excel spreadsheet so that you can work in it? So just let us know. Just write in the chat like, yes, I'm in, or no, I'm still lost. We just want to make sure that you actually can get into the Excel spreadsheet, and so you can start entering the data with Isabella so you can have that practice. So just take a couple of seconds and let us know in the chat space, are you in the Excel spreadsheet? And if not, we'll kind of make sure that you can get into it. So I'll just take a couple of seconds to make sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll just get ourselves sorted, like just understanding how text looks like or date, and then play around with that data validation. Because in addition to having a drop-down menu, you can actually have different types of data validation as well. And so once this cell has been done, so you don't actually need to copy and paste and manually create each cell to be a drop-down menu. You can actually, again, go highlight the cell, and you see that green little box. You can drag it, and it will extend the same formatting for you, or you can just drag it down, and it will do the same thing. And so every other box there is now a checklist. So
perfect. Isabella,
yeah.
Just one thing. Can you just show us that where the download button is in case they're stuck in the read only? So for a couple of people saying that they're stuck in read only, Isabella's now going to show you what to do to get your own copy. In your spreadsheet that you're downloading, yes, there is data in it already if you're along the bottom, if you're on like table formulas or list to table, but on that first tab at the bottom, data entry, it's empty. So you should be okay. So here, Isabella's just going to show you how to download it so you can start working on the copy on your own.
So if you are seeing the view only version of spreadsheet, just head on over to the top left corner file and then go into save as. And you can actually save as a copy online. And then that will be your own personal copy, and you will see the exact same version of it. And it will just sort of show the name as well as a copy. So again, if we go to the top left corner, file, save as, and then that will allow you to work on it online. If you wanted to just try it out on your desktop, you can also download a copy, and you can work on your computer locally, like so.
Exactly. Okay, looks like everyone else is okay, so we can keep moving forward.
Amazing. Perfect. Okay, so again, we are just going to be moving all the way from left to right. So we're starting from our data entry tab. So if you have created a new copy of it, your data entry tab should not have any values there. We're just sort of playing around with dragging and dropping, just allowing Excel to fill our data table accordingly. creating drop-down menus for ourselves so that we're not getting a bunch of different data. Because what I really wanted to show you the next tab over, and we're not going to try and fix this because this is what I love to call a hot mess, is what I would say a poor design. So if we're going, taking a look at this particular spreadsheet, the reason why, there are multiple reasons why it could be misconstrued as, oh, yes, Susan. So for the read only, if we're in File, just make sure you're at the top, locate that File button on the top left corner there, and go into Save As, and you can save as, save a copy online. So that's what it says. We're going to highlight that, and then it should create a new window for you, and then you will be able to work on that spreadsheet. And I'm going to wait. So we were just at data entry. We were playing around, entering dates there, creating our drop-down menu using data validation. So remember that, because that's going to come back. Perfect. Thank you so much. And then we're just taking a look at our poor design tab there. This is just an example of a spreadsheet, and just also being mindful of how we're collecting data and how data is being collected as well. So a couple of things to watch out for is that whenever you're looking at headings and the headings is spanning 2 different rows, you always want to make sure that all the information is within the same cell. So for example, I wouldn't split contact name into contact and name, because Excel is just simply seeing those 2 words as 2 separate entities and not necessarily the same wording. In addition to that, as you can see in the date column, you have your dates that's written in different ways. You have year, month, date, or then you have like date, month, year, and dates written in number as well as alphabet letters. There's all these different formats for dates. So if you need to analyze this, then you would need to format the dates accordingly. In addition to that, you'll see that there's actually also random blank rows, because that's sometimes what happens when you're sort of removing data from a particular data sheet, and then it just created a blank row there. And the reason why this is bad is because Excel breaks the table for you. So it simply interprets this as one table, and then because there's a blank row there, and it will interpret the other section as another table. So when it comes to data analysis, you're unable to sort of analyze every single data point because it's just interpreting as 2 separate data sources. So just keep that in mind. We're not going to be fixing this for now, but we're going to just move on to our yellow tab there at the bottom, from list to table. So we're all at our yellow tab on list to table. You'll see that I have already created a data table here. I have my student name, student ID, there's grades, and then there's all these different dates. And then there's P that stands for present, L that stands for late, and then A that stands for absent. So this is like a brief example, attendance sheet. Yeah, so let me know that you're there. You can give me a thumbs up. We're going to click on the yellow tab that's called list to table. And this is where Alex's shortcut's going to come into play. I know with admin staff, you have to deal with a lot of data. And what that means is that sometimes you look at a spreadsheet and you have like multiple scrolling, and you can't even scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a really, really nice and handy shortcut. If you're within the table, so let's just say I know I want to encompass everything that's within this spreadsheet, I'm just going to click on any cell that's within this table. On my keyboard, I'm going to select Control A. Look at how Excel is capturing all my data. So again, I'm going to go out of it. I'm going to just select one of the data points in my table, and I'm going to select Control A. And it's only capturing anything that has a value or a letter inside. And it's going to say this is going to be a table. Remember, you always need to make sure that you're inside of the table in air brackets, because if you're in outside, if you're in a blank space and you select Control A, it's capturing the entire spreadsheet, and you don't want to do that. And so that's why always keep in mind, if you're going to have any empty columns or empty rows, you always want to make sure to delete all of them first, so then everything is compact. Once you select something inside this table, you're going to select Control A to capture all the data within this space. So now that everything is highlighted without me dragging and dropping, I know this is all set. I can actually go back to Home. I will go to, I believe, Home, and then the drop-down menu here. And then there's an option in Home that says Format as Table. I've captured all my data by Control A on my keyboard, and then go into Home, and I'm going to select Format as Table. And there you have about 56 different styles that you can play around with. And Excel is smart enough to realize that, oh, potentially you have a header. So always make sure that header box is checked. So then it knows that student name, student ID, anything that's in the first row is interpreted as a header. And you can actually just play around with it, design it. If you don't really like this style, again, you can just go back to your Format as Table and just select a different picture. I like to create these alternating bar rows, so then it's clearer for me to see exactly what I need to look at, especially when all my data is horizontally inputted, like an attendance sheet. So that's how we're going to be, that's how easy it is. Just simply converting a list of data into a table by using Control A, and then using that nice and dandy tool, Format as Table.
So let us know if you were able in the chat to get from that list to table tab into a table. Let us know when you've got that done. And don't forget that in the slide deck, all this information is there as well. Okay, Vicky's got it. Mercy's got it. Mavy's got it. Brigitte has got it. Hannah's got it. Looks like people are following along just fine, Isabella. That's great.
Amazing. Perfect. Okay, we're going to move on to our blue tab. So don't be overwhelmed. We're literally just doing one or two tasks that we have to do on a tab so that we can always remember what we just did. So we're going to go into our blue spreadsheet, blue table formulas. And so we're all there. And I've already pre-formatted. So now that you see it's alternating rows, that's an indication to you, oh, this person has already formatted this list into a table. So I don't need to make this into a table again. I already have access to a data table. So I now can do a bunch of different things to manipulate and organize and analyze my data. So one cool thing about a data table is that if you were to add anything next to the end of your table, let's just say I'm going to do total number of presents, it will immediately get converted to an additional column in your data table. You don't need to format or anything. You simply just have to put in that text box or that header next to the column. You can do the same thing with rows. So let's just say I have an additional person in this class. I'm going to add myself. And there you have it. It will complete the table for you, and it will interpret it as an additional data point for your table. So we're going to actually start counting the total number of presents, the total number of lates, the total number of absences in our students. And the command that we're going to be doing is count if. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. And I have just created my new tab there, my new column. So I have total number of presents, or just P. I can just, and then I would just do A for absence and then L for late, because I'm going to try and count how many times this student has been late, has been absent. And I want to make sure that they're all part of my table column. Alrighty, so I'm gonna just zoom in to my cell there that I'm gonna start analyzing. I'm gonna be using the function COUNTIF. So because we're using a formula, we're gonna type in equal sign, COUNTIF. And you know that that's already recognized as a formula. So COUNTIF function, essentially, you're only counting those values if it satisfies a particular criterion. So I want to count within the range of the first row. So I can just highlight that. That's my range. And I also want the criteria here is that it has to be P. So it's only reading the total number of P within that range. And because it's a table, all I need to do is type in one equation and it will automatically populate the entire data table for me. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to count the number of P's within the horizontal row for every student. And we're going to move on doing the same thing for the absences. Again, equal sign, count if, brackets. I'm going to highlight the entire row. You can actually highlight the entire row because our condition is you're only counting A. And then air brackets or quotations, A. And again, because it's a data table, it will only count. It will count for everything. I don't need to drag. I don't need to. It's interpreting everything within the data, and it will all do it for me. So that's why it's really important to convert a list into a table, because then your analysis is just one step instead of multiple steps and then dragging and dropping. And sometimes when you're dragging things, you might miss out a couple of rows, so on and so forth. So we're going to do the same thing, and we are in the late column. We're going to go into equal, count if, equal sign, count if. So maybe, are you able to do that with your formula? Because we're going to be using the count if function. So this is basically what you're going to be typing into your cell, equal sign, count if, soft bracket here. You're going to highlight the entire row if you want to, or you can just drag the range for your row. And I'm only wanting to count the lates. So I'm going to do quotation L, and it will automatically count for me. And let's see. So in this sheet, in our table formulas, we're just going to be counting the total number of P, the total number of A, and then the total number of L. So let me know if you're able to do that in our table formula. And I'm just going to resize this table so it's easy to see. Awesome, Julie. Thank you. Perfect. So you have your P, you have your A, you have your L. Great. COUNTIF is an excellent function if you only want to count things. So it doesn't, the reason why we have to put quotation around is because it's a text value. Usually people use it to count numbers. So if it's a number, if your criteria is a number, then you do not need the quotations. So always go back to the text versus number kind of condition. Okay, so that's it. We're done with our table formulas. We just finished COUNTIF function. Perfect, Mercy. Thank you, Vicky. And we're going to be moving on to our conditional formatting. So we're going to go into our blue tab at the bottom left here, conditional formatting.
And just before we start with that, are there any questions so far around the table formulas, table formatting, any of that, or are we good to continue moving on? Let us know. I feel like we're probably good. People said that we're all good. People got access to the formula. Let us know in that chat space if we are good to continue moving forward. Awesome. Good to
Amazing.
go. Great.
You're all such troopers. Okay, perfect. So we're now moving on to our conditional formatting. And we noticed that here, again, it is our banded table. It's a data table. So we are going to be doing some conditional formatting. So if you're still in the home tab here, you'll see that there is a conditional formatting tab available there. In this table, I've only highlighted the total number of lates. So I wanted to only showcase people who have been late more than a couple of times. So I'm only highlighting those students particularly. So I'm going to be looking at the total lates column. and I'm going to go into conditional formatting. And I'm going to select highlight tool. So I want to highlight the cells for students who are late for more than 2 times. Okay, so I'm going to go to highlight cell rules, and I'm going to select equal to 2. I want to find people that are equal to or more than, actually greater than. Highlight cell rules, greater than, and I'm going to try and find greater than 2, and it's going to fill it. So it will automatically fill it with red and have red box. Ooh. Sorry. I'm going to highlight this again and then go into conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, greater than 2. And now I see that the one student that has 3 lates is now highlighted. This isn't me formatting the cell or formatting the text. This is a rule that I have implemented in this list of data. I can do the same thing. I can expand the search a little bit more. Again, I'm just going to be highlighting this entire table, and I want to show anything that is equal to 1. So people who have been late only once, they have a yellow fill. And here I have it. The students who have been late once, their cells are automatically highlighted. So conditional formatting really allows you to bring to light to certain data points that you really wanted to focus on. In this case, in an attendance sheet, you wanted to look at like students who have more than 1 late. So feel free to play around with conditional formatting. We've only been playing around with highlighting the cells. One thing that I really love is using data bars. So data bars includes basically visualize the entire data. So I'm going to show you if we are highlighting the column that we are analyzing here, conditional formatting, data bars, and I'm just selecting any sort of data bar. I've selected solid fill, and it will automatically create these visual representations. So if it's a 2, the data bar is significantly bigger. And if you scroll down to 3, because that's the highest number, that data bar filled the entire cell. So it's a really nice visualization tool. Instead of like looking at the number, now visually you can also see how big or small the data bars are. And that's all done on conditional formatting.
There was one question which says, can you do both a drop-down menu and conditional formatting to change the color?
Can you do both? So I'm assuming that Anu, you're thinking about like a drop-down menu for like the PAL?
Yes.
Yeah. There are 2 things. So the drop-down menu is for data collection. What we just did here was a data analysis because we're analyzing what's been collected. So it's another additional data point that we added to the data table. So I would say yes, but I would also like to separate it. So like the check boxes is just for me to collect information. And then now that I've collected information through the text boxes, I can count if from the menu. So why don't we just do that? Yeah. So I can actually convert the P here into a checklist. So data validation, a list, and I'm going to be P, comma A, comma L. If I were to select, so this person has selected P, and it will automatically count it. If I changed this to say L, then the total number of lates has increased. And then the conditional formatting rule also applies. So it's very dynamic. That's why we want everything to be in a data table, because if we're changing anything within the table, all of our formulas and conditional formatting would also change accordingly without you having to go in and change it. Yeah, P. And then it will go back to 1 again. And then it will be highlighted yellow because I made that as a rule.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to now moving on to visualizing our data. through sorting and filtering. So sorting and filtering are two amazing tools for us to really highlight those key data. So we already know how we can do that through conditional formatting, but we also have access to these tools called sorting as well as filtering. So if we're moving towards the right-hand side, we're moving towards the orange territories or the reddish orange territory with sorting. So we have our sorting table here. Again, it's banded, so I know it's a data table. I don't need to convert this into a table. Ooh. Sorry. Just refresh there. So within sorting, you'll have access to that bar. How do you remove the data bar if you don't want it anymore? Oh, okay. There's a couple of ways that you can do that. I usually just undo, so I can undo it so then everything is back to normal. Or you can, and that's the easiest way to go. Let me just go back to the conditional formatting here. So if you don't want the data bars, you can just go back to conditional formatting. I believe there's an option for you in data bars. Oh, sorry, in manage rules or clear rules. So if you want to clear all the rules, go back to conditional formatting, clear, and you can clear for the selected cell or you can clear for the entire thing. So let's just say for this student, I don't want to highlight it as well as have the data bar. I'm just going to clear for this particular cell, and it will only empty it for that cell. Or if you wanted to expand it, you can still just select the one cell, go to conditional formatting, clear rules for the entire sheet. So then nothing else is going to be conditionally formatted. But that doesn't mean that your data, like your formulas or anything, is going to be broken. It's just how you're visualizing the data. Awesome. Okay, so we're going into our sorting section here. We have, again, home. And now we're going to try and go into our data. And there we have the sort and filter option here. Again, if we were at home, we want to go into our data tab. And we're only looking into our sorting here. So what I really wanted to go into is the ascending and descending sorting piece. You can obviously sort your data according to alphabetical order, and you can see that with the ascending as well as the descending piece. Because this entire spreadsheet is formatted as a data table, it will automatically arrange it for you for the entire table. So you don't need to highlight anything. You can just select a particular column that you want to sort. So I had just sorted my student name. All I had to do is click on the first entry there, and then I selected sort ascending, and there I have it. It's sorting in ascending order according to their last name. If I don't like that, I can also do that with sort descending. One thing to note that is if you use sorting, it basically breaks the way it's being arranged, the way your data table is being arranged. So if you have a particular way of entering data, so Isabella's data point was first entered because she was the first person to answer my email, and then Alex answered her email a little bit later, so then I put in Alex's information at the end. If you sort it, it will change up the order. So keep that in mind. And while it's great to ascend and descend our sorting order, we can do that with letters. We can also do that with numbers. So if we're into our grade section, again, I just have to highlight the first cell, the first entry point in the grade column, and I can select ascending. And it is arranged all the way from grade 9 to 12 for me automatically. And it's all expanded. So I don't need to worry that these data points are not going to follow each other because I'm only analyzing the column. Because it's formatted as a table, everything is arranged and categorized for you. So ascending is great for text as well as for numbers. Now, you can also create another thing that's called custom sort. And that's when we're going to be combining conditional formatting with sorting. So moving on, we're going into our sorting by cell color. Sorting by cell color here. But before we go, let me know if you're able to sort according alphabetical order, or you can sort the grade. Let me know if that's okay. Type it into the chat. Otherwise, I'm happy to go over it again.
Good to go. Yes, yes, we're good. So looks like everyone's grasping everything. Awesome. Great job, guys.
Amazing. Okay, so we are still in the orange territory here. I've deliberately formatted the data table to be grayed because we're going to be playing around with some cell conditional formatting and then sorting it accordingly. So I have an additional grade column here that is grades 10, 11 to 12. I want to first apply a conditional formatting onto these values first. So I'm just going to highlight this when we're going to review a little bit of our conditional formatting. Going into home, conditional formatting. I only want to highlight the ones who are going to be graduating this year, so the grade 12s. So I'm going to highlight the cell that has the number equal to 12. And I'm just going to change it up a little bit, so I'm going to fill it with green. And I can see, just scroll down. Oh, none of them are actually. Did I do something wrong? They're all grade 9s. Oh no, okay. I accidentally ruined my data. So I'm just gonna do it again. Conditional formatting. I want to only highlight the cells that are 12 equal to 12. Change it to green. And there I have it. I'm only highlighting the grade 12s. So now that I know that my cells are colored, then I can actually sort by color instead of by ascending or descending order. So that's a customization that you can create. Okay, so let me know if you're able to conditional format, highlight whatever number you feel like, and then we're going to sort. So to access the sort menu, we are going into data, and we have custom sort. So I'm going to select custom sort, and I'm going to select the column that I'm going to be sorting, which is grade. And I want to sort it by the cell color. I know that this cell color is green, so it already knows that. Excel is smart enough to know exactly which shade of green, so I don't have to like find out exactly what that green is. And I only want to see the grades with that cell color green, and it's ordered at the top. I only want to see the graduates at the top. And once I select OK, I can see that all my data points that satisfies that conditional formatting is now at the top. So the custom sort is only one way. So cell color is only one of the things that we're covering today. But if you take a look at custom sort, you can actually add a couple of extra functions. So you can actually sort by font color. You can also sort by the conditional formatting icon. So if you have a drop-down menu that has different icons instead of a word or a letter, you can also sort it by icons. Because I know students love emojis. You can just sort without having to use text or value in ascending or descending order. You can also sort it according to the way it's being formatted. But always remember, that's a combination with conditional formatting as well as sorting. Work hand in hand with that. And let me know if we're able to do that. And we're slowly going into our filtering. Awesome. Amazing. Okay, we are going to our yellow tabs. Finally, we're in filter. So filter, instead of seeing the entire data table holistically, filter allows us to pull out certain data points. So we can actually only look at certain data that we want to highlight. And it's great because you don't want everybody to be seeing all the information that's available to everybody on a particular spreadsheet, but you can actually create a filtered view for other people to see. So we're going to go into our filtering first. And I'm going to, again, go into data and select filter. I'm going to only look at the grades. So because it's a data table, again, The reason why it's a data table is because it automatically has created these filters for you in that drop-down menu at the top. So if you look at the grade there is a downward arrow, and you actually have filter or number filters because it knows that it's receiving numbers in that column. So I only want to see people who are in grade 9. And this filtered view allows me to only see students who are in grade 9. And you can do the same thing with non-numbers. So you can actually go into, so I'm going to get rid of this filter. And I'm actually going to go into March 1st, that particular date. I want to only see people who were present on that day or who are late on that day. Again, if you take a look at the heading, if you do the drop-down menu, you'll see that Excel is smart enough to realize that it's a text. It's not a number, so it will give you text filters and it will give you options to play around with. So I'm just going to find people who are late or absent on that day. And I can see that there are 2 people who are absent on that day. They're in grade 11. These are the information. So filtering and sorting allows you to see your data in 2 different views. Filtering can pull out particular information, and then sorting is just arranging the information in a better way. So that's filter. And you can always get rid of that filter by going into that downward arrow, go into clear filter. And if you clear it, it will go back to its normal way there. And I'm going to give you a couple of 5 minutes. And if you can just go over to text, date, as well as numeric filter to just explore the different columns that I have inserted into your spreadsheet. Essentially, it's the same thing. You're just playing around with the different filter and also understanding how Excel interprets the data within the column. So then you can see how the views are going to be. So so I'm just going to give you 5 minutes. And if you have any questions, you can let me know in the chat or you can unmute. We have a small enough group. I'm sure everybody's happy to hear your voice. So Alex, what did you learn anything new in today's session?
Yeah, I learned so much. Great. I know that we use one of the things that we use a lot our Excel for is automatic responses to forms. We do a lot of forms, a lot of surveys, and we love that it builds us an Excel spreadsheet from that with all the data already, but then trying to manipulate that data isn't always the easiest to know how we want to look at it or like pull out key information that we were looking to get from that form. So the conditional formatting and the filtering is going to be great for that, for what I do. So
exactly. Yeah, the conditional formatting is what I usually do when I send out a form and people are inputting their answers. As the answers are getting populated in the Excel spreadsheet, then it's because the column has been conditional formatting, then it will highlight certain responses.
Exactly. So if we're looking for something that's like maybe been a challenge for a lot of people, then we know right away if they answer like on a scale of 1 to 5 how successful was. Anything that's below a 3, we want that pulled out so that we know we can go back to those people and help them like do a follow-up with them that's a little bit more personalized. So that's going to be great.
And if you're playing around with, say, text filters, it will also give you a heads up. Like, for example, I'm over here. I'm just trying to find out people with last names that begins with A. And I realized that in this particular data set, I actually don't have anybody that has a last name of A. So it's nice. You don't have to like go through the entire list holistically, like to see exactly what kind of data you have. But with the filter look, if you don't see a particular view, then you know you probably don't have that data. So I want to find something that begins with the letter B. And I'll see that there's only one student that has that last name or whatever, especially if you know exactly what you're looking for. It could also just be words. So like if you have a data table that has people sorted into departments, accounting, facilities, or teaching staff, then you can also sort it like that. So you can view accounting staff only or accounting information. You can also view facilities information only using that sort function, the text sorting.
Maybe in the chat space, you guys could share one way that's something that you've learned today you're going to implement into now your day-to-day task. What's like something that you were like, wow, I've been searching for information on how to do this, and then this is what I got out of it today. Maybe share how you're going to take what your takeaway is going to be from today. And again, don't forget that this session is one, it's recorded. So if you need to go back to watch it, you absolutely can. And two, I am going to put back the link to the slide deck in the session if you didn't know where the slide deck was. Someone wrote,
Awesome.
conditional formatting is terrific.
It
Agreed.
really is. I know. And I love the data bar function, especially when you have a massive list and there's numerous numbers. Like when you're dealing with donations or like collecting any sort of money, like that's
Yes.
really easy for you to visualize, oh, this particular donor has donated a lot, so I probably should focus on. Yeah, the
Yeah.
data table is better than like, because sometimes you would like read it and you would like drop a zero or like a digit sometimes, because yeah, when you're dealing with large spreadsheets, it's really hard. Yeah,
For sure.
student attendance. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm really glad that this has been directly applicable for you, Hannah. And as you know, like you have access to this practice spreadsheet, so always go back and recall. I deliberately separated the tasks into different tabs, so then when you're in that tab, you can say, "Oh, what did I just learn there?" And plus, we also have our recording available for you, so you can always get into that particular section. Just make sure you're like going through the video and checking out exactly which tab I'm in. I deliberately also color coded it so you know like, oh, yellow is the list to table, table formula is blue, all that jazz. Anyway, perfect. And yeah, like sorting according to university as well. Just make sure that it is like either a drop down menu or like you're typing in the data in a particular way. So it's like the capitalization matches. Otherwise, it will interpret it in a different value. Awesome. Just a heads up in terms, so what we were just doing here was essentially the Excel browser version. What Alex shared with you, it's an overview of what the browser version is and what the desktop version offers. What I really love about this is the share function. So if you take a look at the top right corner there, you have this button that's called share. And depending on your organization, so for example, in my school, I'm unfortunately unable to share it with anybody outside of my domain unless I have their email addresses. So you can actually share it with other people, and you can also allow editing to be turned on so that they can also contribute or analyze data with you alongside with you without having to create new copies and sending that copy over email. All of this is once you share it with a particular person, it will send them the link and they can immediately edit it on the browser, just like what you've been doing in the last hour.
Imagine
So
how
that
great that would be if you're like a school secretary. You know how like if you're in your school, we still have that like paper absence sheet. Then what we can do is we can say like, okay, the grade one teacher gets access to the grade one attendance sheet. You as the administrative staff, you would have already set up the table properly, so they can only pick specific things, and you don't need to have those students doing the runner to take the attendance sheet to the office so that you can input it. You just have that one attendance sheet for every teacher. They know to fill that in, and then you automatically have all of the data available to you without emails or photocopies or any of that. It's just automatically there, and you can have like one table for one Excel spreadsheet for every class, and then that way you have such easy data. I love that idea.
Exactly. And then like especially if you've started to design, like if you're really getting into Excel and you started creating like templates for people to fill in like a blank attendance sheet, then you can always send it to them with viewing access. So similar to how we sent our spreadsheet today with you. So then you're forcing that person to create a copy that will live within their cloud. So then you're not like people are not breaking your template, right? Because it's really hard. Sometimes you spend so many hours designing this amazing template. In addition to that, what I really love is that commenting function. So let's just say your colleague has shared something with you and you have no idea what this particular cell is. Like you read the heading, you kind of understand the word, but you don't really understand what that data represents. You can actually use comments. So if you top right corner there next to share, you can actually add a comment. So you can just say, this is for grade levels, high school student. And if I were to type that in and you share this to your colleague, they will see that there's a little icon there. And if they were hovering over the cell, then they can see the comment that you have added. And if you know your colleague's name, so you can actually, so I know, so everybody within my organization that shares the same domain, I can actually talk to them. So I say, Adam, can you please take a look at this list of data? Is it okay? Yes, no. In any case, the comments as well as the sharing with the editing capability really allows collaboration to occur, especially now that we're not necessarily in the same space. Yeah, I love working on the cloud because it also saves space on my computer as well. And yeah, because that's a huge issue, running out of space.
Yes, absolutely. No need to hit file save every 2 seconds.
Exactly. And so one other thing that I really wanted to bring your attention to is how to locate this. So if you don't know where it is on the cloud, it's actually in your OneDrive. So the way you're going to access OneDrive is on your browser there. You can just sort of type in onedrive.live.com. And then if you've already logged in with your credentials, with your Microsoft Office 365 credentials, then you should see the drive function. Oh, I guess not. And you will basically see an overview of all the different documents that you've been working on the cloud. So let me just sign in. And what it looks like essentially is like a folder arrangement. So like how your desktop folder would look like if you have Excel spreadsheet, if you have PowerPoints, if you have Microsoft Word documents that you've been working online, then it will kind of look like this. So when you've logged into your OneDrive, you'll see that there is your My Documents folder, but then there's also all the various files that you've uploaded. So if you have particular files that you would love for your team to work on, simply go into the upload. Then it will allow you to upload any sort of local folders or files from your computer to the cloud. Then you can share it with your team. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you already have Excel spreadsheets on your computer, it's perfectly fine. You can just simply upload files and then select the appropriate folder there. And then it will automatically become a live Excel doc that you can work online. And what's great about I love these little icons that it has on OneDrive. If you have recently opened up a folder or you recently uploaded the folder, it gives you like these little blue lights, blue lines that are signaling you, oh, hey, these are your new files. Because sometimes I fail to look at the modified column, especially when you're dealing with a lot of files. I like to just sort of have that visual cue, like, boop. But I can also filter it. Alex, do you use OneDrive often or just predominantly Excel?
Oh, I work just in the cloud, so I'm in OneDrive all day, every day. I try not to keep anything on my desktop because I don't want it to lose. And we're being in the office, at home.
Exactly.
I don't want to have the worries that I won't be able to work on something. So everything just lives in the cloud for me.
Yeah, same, same. I also don't want to have to be in that position where like I left my school computer at school and then I have no access to any sort of resources that I've been creating at
Yes.
school. Yeah. Yeah, and
And there was a
Farsi.
question from Patricia. What's the difference between OneDrive files and Teams files? Patricia, OneDrive
Ooh.
files are just only accessible by you unless you share them. And then everything that's in a team is already available to the whole team. It's already shared with everyone that's a member of that team if they have access to that team and they have access to that file. So that's the difference. OneDrive is really just for you, and Teams is the same. And yeah, Google's awesome as well. It auto saves everything. Yep. So like Office in the web and Google in the web, they're very, very similar. Everything is kind of automatically saving for us. Everything can be shared, can be collaborative. They're both really great, great options.